Okay, John.
Do you want to give the parameters first, John Collier?
Yeah, I can do that. So sorry about that. So welcome everyone. Thank you all for joining us on the go-to meeting for the Historic Preservation Commission. We have a big agenda. And so some of the rules that make it a lot easier when we're doing this online is if when you're not speaking, if you would be sure that your mic is muted. And that's a little microphone down in the bottom of your screen. You can click on it to make it red, and that makes you muted, and you can click on it to make it green again. We also have to do roll call votes for every vote that we take for this meeting, because that's one of the requirements for this special conditions that the governor established for the COVID-19 situation. And we have a couple of projects that we need to talk about, and I'll let, one obviously is a very big one, and one is a smaller one that we'll do first, and I will present that. The applicant for that is not here. So with that, Dennis, did you have anything you wanted to add before we start? You're muted. You're still muted.
John, I think we're ready to roll. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, John Burns.
Unmute yourself, John.
There we go. Okay, before I call the meeting to order, I'd just like to do a roll call to make sure everyone is here. So when I say your name, please say here. Sean.
Here.
Glenn.
Here.
Julie. Do I hear Julie?
No, I don't hear her.
I haven't seen her.
Keep going then.
Okay, Kevin.
Here.
Shauna.
Here.
Patty.
Here.
Amy.
Here.
And Kurt.
Here.
Very good. I would like to call to order the Lafayette Historic Preservation Commission meeting of Monday, May 18th, 2020. First on the agenda is approval of the minutes from our April 27th meeting. If everyone has had a chance to look at them, if there are any comments or maybe someone would like to make a motion.
This is Kevin. I'd make a motion. We accept the meeting minutes as communicated.
Seconded, Amy.
Very good. And when I call for each vote, I will go down the list again so everyone can say yay or nay. Sean?
Yay.
Glenn?
Yay.
Julie? Kevin?
Aye or yay.
Shauna?
Yay.
Patty?
Yay.
Amy? Do I hear Amy?
Yay.
Kurt?
Yay.
And I vote yay as well. Okay, motion passes. Okay, moving on to new business. Did the Public Relations and Education Committee meet?
No, they did not.
Did the District Committee meet?
No, we did not.
Okay, and then moving on to the COA Committee, Kurt?
Yes, we did meet on May 13th.
Very good. Please give us your reports.
Okay, the COA committee reviewed two applications, and the first one was for 619 Ferry Street, Duncan Hall, the installation of a couple fences there. And I think I'll let John take it from here as far as presenting that project.
Okay, thank you. So this is a fence that runs from the northwest corner of the building, and it runs out to the top of the little hill you can see in the sketch, and then it runs back over to the old J&C building. And that is a 4-foot fence with a 4-foot gate where it's labeled as 4-foot gate. In the back, there is a 5-foot fence with an 8-foot double gate back by the car that you can see. And this will be a black metal that's shown in the image above called Majestic. And then Andy, if you can scroll down. That's just a street view. And that is it. They're having issues with people cutting through the green space, and it's causing a lot of maintenance problems. And so they would like, the Duncan Hall would like to address this issue. I should mention that the fences do not touch the building, either building. They stop just shy of it.
Thank you, John. I will add that the commission has approved similar type of fences in the past. The color will be black as shown. Yep. And the COA committee recommended approval.
Is Dan with us?
I'm not sure. Are you with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Can you report on the Ferry Street fence?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
Again, the black iron look is appropriate for meets the standards. It's appropriate for the district in that it doesn't touch the buildings, it's removable and doesn't damage the historic fabric. So I think that meets the standards.
Great.
Thank you.
Is there any other discussion amongst the commission member?
Do we need to bring it to the table?
If there are no further questions, if somebody would like to make a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Second, Kevin.
Great. All right. All those in favor, and I'll go down the roll call. Don?
Make the original motion real quick.
Yes.
Glenn made
Okay, thank you.
All right. Are we ready for the roll call?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Very good. Sean?
Aye.
Glenn?
Aye.
Kevin?
Aye.
Donna?
Aye.
Patty?
Aye.
Amy?
Aye.
Kurt?
Aye.
All right, and I also vote aye, so unanimous. Motion passes. And Kurt, if you would like to take us into the second report you have.
Okay, this is for 631 Main Street, and it's quite a large project, and I would think at this moment here, before I continue with my report, Barry, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Would you like to give an overview of the project?
Yes. Hi, I'm Barry Knechtel with KJG Architecture. I am the applicant for our client. And
Andy, can you give Barry control if you didn't already?
all right, I have pulled up the application. Does everybody see it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Wonderful. The project is a 5-story infill development that will take up the former parking lot along between the Frontier Building and Kathy's Candies. The first floor will be a resident entrance and then leasable commercial space. The floors 2 through 5 are what are described as luxury apartments. These are large units, much larger than you would find on the other side of the river, geared towards young professionals, people downsizing, people that want to live in a vibrant downtown community. On the screen, you'll see the view from the Lafayette Theater looking across the street at the proposed building. The entrance for the residents would be on the west end of the building, and then retail continuing east. The And then the view from the other end of Main Street, looking back downtown, you can see the courthouse in the background and the Frontier building adjacent. There's on sheet C, this is just a site plan showing the building, how it fronts along Main Street. And then all of the utilities and parking and access to the subgrade parking is off of the alley that comes from Columbia Street. You can see we've designed to keep access to the Long Center for the Performing Arts and the rear access to Kathy's Candies. And then the curb is shown here, or the curved ramp into the basement there, and then on-grade parking.
Hey, Barry,
Sheet D, yes.
Barry, will you clarify that there's a whole level of parking under that we don't see?
Yes. So the curved ramp leads to the subgrade parking, which is a big rectangular box that fills a majority of the site. And I don't think we included that, Andrew, did we? Sheet D, this is a typical upper floor layout. It'll show the different apartment configurations. Sheet E highlights the roof patio, so residents will have access to the rooftop where there will be lounge, some cornhole, and seating for the use up by the residents. But it did not show up on the rendering as it's up on the roof. Okay. Sheet, oh, it lagged. Sheet F, there we go. This is the main elevation along Main Street, the north elevation. The goal of the design was to give it instead of it being a one large building that took up the whole block, was to subdivide it into some separate, more historic scale buildings. So the resident entrance has a limestone veneer paneled system. Then we have a combination of masonry, limestone, and the very top, we do use fiber cement panels to mimic stucco or wood paneling. The fiber cement paneling is just more durable than wood. It doesn't burn or rot. So it's a product that is more commonly used now instead of wood because of its durability, used sparingly along the top. So this is limestone, but then fiber cement would just be up here. We've shown some pictures on this sheet of some other projects or other buildings along Main Street where some of the inspiration was drawn from. You can see the cloth awnings that we will use along the ground level. We also have multiple window types. You can see above here, this is what's commonly called as a Chicago style window, which can be found along Main Street. And we have some double hung windows that are mimicking across the street, the Lafayette Brewing Company. We also are using aluminum storefront, but we're doing them in a black color to be more historically appropriate. Along North Street, we do have Juliet balconies, which can be found downtown. So they do not project out over the right of way. And if I zoom in, you can kind of see a little clear how that would look. There's some lines.
Barry, you said North Street, you mean Main Street. Sorry, just want to clarify.
Yes, the north elevation along Main Street. Thank you. And some limestone or cast stone detailing at the sill, similar to this building that you can see here that's on Ferry. There are 5 different brick colors being proposed, and that was done again to give the look of smaller individual buildings. They work harmoniously together, and we tried to stay, for the most part, in the red or brown colorings. Then the west elevation, which would not be seen predominantly as the Kathy's Candies building is shown here, and then the long center would be blocking this elevation. So up along the north end of the west elevation, we do have masonry that wraps the corner. We've picked up some brick detailing that is used at 839 Main Street and at the Long Center as a typical detail. But then the majority of the west elevation that will not be seen very easily from any public road would be fiber cement paneling. We did choose 2 warm red colors for the back so that when you see it, it would blend into the masonry buildings around it. And the goal of that is just to not call attention to the large facade there. Some other notes, we did pick the Juliet balconies. The owner does want a slider glass doors, but we've selected a French door style, meaning the style and the rails are much thicker than your standard residential slider. So we've shown the manufacturer that will be specified in a photograph there. Okay, the south exterior elevation. This is the view from Columbia Street. Currently there are parking lots along Columbia Street. And then the 2 main, so this building is kind of shaped like the pi symbol. There are 2 fingers that stick out to the south towards Columbia Street. Those 2 elevations are predominantly masonry with the same brick detailing that we saw on the west elevation. We've got some windows shown. We did explain to the committee that these 2 faces of the building are fairly close to the property line. So we are going to be requesting a state variance to allow windows in that plane. They would not normally be allowed for the building code, but we think it's important enough to get windows in those elevations that we're going to be asking for a state variance to allow that to happen. And we've been pretty successful with variances based on this being a fully sprinkled building. It should be fairly safe from any fire causing any damage to an adjacent property. The surfaces then in the background that are much farther back, about 100 feet back, those pick up the fiber cement paneling that we saw in the west elevation. Then the east elevation is another one that will be very difficult to see from any public road. You can see how large the Frontier building is compared to the rest of the east elevation. We do have masonry coming back that you would be able to see along Main Street, but once you get behind the Frontier building, this was predominantly fiber cement paneling, similar discussion to the rest. At the request of the committee, we've provided details about the cornice work and the limestone paneling just to see the level of detail that would be up at the cornice. We've called out the different FIPON millworks that we intend to use and gave some thickness dimensions so that you can see it would not just be a flat cornice, that there is some architectural detail as well. Sheet L kind of highlights the different window types that I've discussed. More detail about the masonry detailing. We do show the resident entrance canopy would be a steel angle that's then cantilevered out, painted black, and then just a detail of the awning sizes proposed. And then we do have some pictures of adjacent properties for your reference.
Great, thank you very much, Barry. Very informative. I believe that before I continue here, the mayor would like to make some comments.
Yes, thank you, Kurt. I appreciate the opportunity, so thank you. Ladies and gentlemen of the commission, I appreciate your time tonight, and thank you to Andy and Doug and all their work on this project. As you know, the city of Lafayette over the last several years has committed literally millions of dollars to downtown through infrastructure, streetscape projects, and our involvement in, quite frankly, most of the buildings that you see downtown, from the Holiday Inn Hotel to Pullman Station to the park. The city has had some involvement in making sure those projects were viable and able to take place. And this is another exciting project that I can tell you that I'm very excited about for our community. As most of you know, a couple of years ago, we did a couple studies, one with Green Street, looking at overall housing options in our community throughout the whole county. We actually did that with Lafayette, West Lafayette, and Tippecanoe County, and looked at different types of housing options, urban settings, neighborhood settings, townhomes, different things to get an understanding of what this community would need, what it looked like, and what we should be doing each year, looking at demand, working with the Area Plan Commission was involved with us on how we would do that. We also did a study with MKSK to look at our downtown infill lots and identify infill opportunities and rank those in what was the most underutilized and how they could be used. We went to 5 points and did a 5 points redevelopment study, all of which trying to look at how do we put the pieces together to make downtown a destination, a place of choice, how do we create living options, and how do we create that from an economic development and a community development standpoint. And that's taken a lot of time, everything from the Columbian Park Master Plan, where we're now building a new baseball stadium, new penguin exhibit, working on the lagoon and Memorial Island. This all ties together in a plan to make, one, this community vibrant and successful, make it appealing to everybody of all ages and backgrounds, and how we create jobs here and work with our companies to keep and retain talent. And you know, this project fits into that. As you probably know, the city is spending $3.5 million to move the Pearl River sewer, which will actually make this lot developable, but will also open up the lot across the street from City Hall, where we plan to build a new police station and then a new garage for downtown that will house employees from City Hall, all of our police vehicles, and then about another 350 parking spaces for downtown, for the Long Center, the Lafayette Theater that we've recently purchased to begin to work on increasing our arts and entertainment value throughout our community, tying that in with the Long Center and with Loeb Stadium. And so there are 1,000 moving parts to this puzzle every day to keep the community running, provide those opportunities. And it's not easy, to be quite honest with you, to make all that work, make the finances work, and do it in a way that's attractive to the community. And so, I can tell you that I feel this project brings all of those things that we are looking for and all of those plans together. And I want to thank Doug, and I want to thank Andy and their team. We've had several meetings, there's been several phone calls, and I feel they have done an unbelievable job trying to meet the concerns of the commission whenever they could. And I worked on a lot of projects, and quite frankly, not everybody's this easy to work with. And so again, I want to thank them for that. And I would ask the commission that you would approve this project. Like I said, there is a lot of moving parts to it. There's a lot of timing involved with their building and our building, and those things are critical. I can remember, I'm born and raised here. I was a policeman. I can remember when you could go downtown and drive around on our duty shifts and not see anybody downtown. Literally, it was a ghost town downtown, and it's not anymore. And a lot of that's had to do with the investments, the work this commission's done. But those things don't just happen. They take planning, they take timing, they take investment. And during this period of COVID-19, quite frankly, I'm thrilled that we have somebody that's willing to make this type of investment, and this project stayed on track. We're working really hard. We have a small business loan program that we're doing. Tomorrow, the next set of funds for that are coming out. The vast majority of all those businesses are in downtown because we're trying to keep that vibrancy. We're trying to do those things because we know downtown can be a tough place with parking and people, all the underground utilities. Every time you try to build, every time you try to do something, it has its challenges. And so we're focused on that, and with the 2 phases of streetscape. So again, I appreciate the work of the commission. I feel you do valuable work, and I support that. And I support Andy and Doug, because this is a great project, and I appreciate how well you've worked with us to try to bring all this together. You've done a fantastic job. It is a lot of money. It's a $20 million project. Those don't come along just every day, and it's another piece to this community being vibrant, downtown being vibrant, and us having those different options for people that want to be in our community. So again, I would sincerely, respectfully request your approval on this project so we can continue to move forward with our plans for downtown.
Thank you very much, Tony. Normally I dive into this project and ask a whole bunch of questions, but we did a lot of that on Wednesday. So I'm just going to start off here by saying that the COA committee has recommended approval to the full commission with various conditions. And it's quite a long list, but I think I need to go through them here so the rest of the commission kind of understands how we were looking at this project here. We requested a change in the window size as the facade designs change. That has been accomplished. The sliding doors, as Barry said, now look more like French doors. The entries to the commercial spaces off of Main Street will be recessed. A canopy design for the apartment entry has been provided. The aluminum storefront color has been changed to a dark material. We will get into the fiber cement and the corner next to the Cathy's in a second here. And there also was concern about egress from the adjoining buildings, how they're going to access the back of the building or where their utilities or their trash pickup or whatever is. I think that can be easily worked out. As Barry said, on the elevation that is visible from Columbia Street, there are 2 walls there, as Barry pointed out, that have a lot of brick on them and are 5 stories tall. And as Barry mentioned, that they are going to go to the state of Indiana and request a variance to increase the amount of openings in that wall from 0 to, I would assume, as many as the state will allow. But we don't know when the variance is heard. I would assume that is correct, Barry. So it could be 60 days or so before we even know the direction of the south elevation or the view from Columbia Street, which will be substantial, will be determined. So I would like for the applicants or KJG to report back to us as soon as that hearing is held, and let us know what the state is thinking, and maybe we can readdress some of the opening issues on that back wall once we know where the variance is coming from or going to. So, one of our other comments was we thought there was way too much cement paneling on the southwest and east elevations. They have not reduced the amount of this fiber cement paneling, but they've changed the color so it blends in more with the brick on the building, which I think is very good to do. The biggest condition that we looked at was on your elevation F, where the building abuts Cathy's Candy building.
Barry, can you show us that? Barry, can you zoom in, please? Or
obviously the Cathy's Candies building is 2 stories high, and given the stair tower and the elevator towers and all that, the height of the building, the new proposed building would be 6 stories high there. Last week, John and I worked with Barry to hopefully come up here with a solution to at least make that not look like a 6-story building, but only a 5-story building. And so what Barry has done here is extended the 5-story roof line across and pretty much cut off the view. And he's also pushed back the elevator and the stairs so they're not as close to the street as possible here.
Barry, can you go to the sketch? I think that'll be more helpful.
Yeah, your rendering sketch. There you go. So as you can see, there is a brick portion that goes up to story number 5, but then above that on story number 6 went with the white cement fiber paneling to hopefully make that portion as invisible as possible from Main Street. Barry, I do have a question though. Are there going to be windows there? I see on your F drawing you show some windows. On the drawing that we're looking at right now, I do not see any. Maybe they are there, I just can't. Maybe they're there, but just behind that. Could you clarify that?
The intent is to have windows into that lobby.
Okay.
But you just can't see them because they would sit right about here and they would sit here. And because of the parapet here, they're below the parapet, but they are there.
Okay, so in your best opinion, they will not be visible from Main Street?
Per that we do show them in elevation H,
Yes.
but you can see in that sketch or in that, I'll zoom back up to A. You can kind of see that corner right there. They just don't show up. So let me scroll back up. So, I mean, it just misses showing up here.
Yeah, Barry, and this part of the building that goes beyond the 5 stories is again, like you said, the lobby for the elevator and the stairwells and things. It's not additional living space or anything like that. So the reason you're up further is because to accommodate those stairs and elevators, correct?
That's correct.
So I think that's a very good solution. It does not, in my opinion, it does not appear from Main Street to be a 6-story building abutting a 2-story building. It's only 5, which I believe is appropriate there. My last comment is that talking with Dan, he was bombarded with a lot of information to try to process here in a limited amount of days. And I'd like Dan to get the opportunity to look at the details and make whatever comments he would like to make or have whatever questions answered by KJG as far as some of the detailing throughout the building goes. So hopefully that process can continue as Dan has more time to look into that. So like I said, opening up here, the COA committee has recommended approval. Send it back to you, John.
Okay, thanks. So to clarify, you gave a conditional approval, but not all the conditions were met?
The only real condition that I see that was not met was reducing the amount of the fiber cement board and replacing it with another material that would be more visually compatible. I understand why that decision was made, but changing the color really helped to blend it in with all the other materials.
Okay.
And again, there's the variance question, which we cannot answer today. So you have to see what.
Right. And those would be real windows, not flow windows?
That's correct. They look into living rooms and bedrooms on that end of the building.
Okay, thanks. Okay, John, that concludes your report. Is there anything from Dan we should hear?
Well, I can have reviewed it, and again, going back to the standards that the commission has, your ordinance, within a local historic district, new buildings must visually compatible with buildings and places to which they are related. Height of the proposed building must be visually compatible with adjacent buildings. I do not think the 5-story and 6-story building meets that requirement from a historic preservation standpoint. When you've got a 2-story building next to it and 1, 2, and 3-story buildings across the street. There's options, the rendering we're looking at there, if the 5th floor white portions of that building were pushed back 10, 15 feet, it would be more like we're looking at a 4-story building there, or instead of a 5-story building. Flipping this stair tower down by the Frontier building, which is a bigger building, would help with that massing. It's just, reading the ordinance and reading the Secretary of Interior standards for historic preservation, I don't feel that the current design meets the standards.
Okay, thank you, Dan. I'd like to open this up to the commission for any questions or discussion points.
This is Kevin. I was gonna ask Barry, how does Long Center access their stage doors? And do they own an area that will not have parking and be blocked? How does that access for them work?
Right. So as part of this project, I believe there is an easement, and Andy, you can correct me if I'm wrong. There is an easement currently that we would maintain the access along the south end of this property. The building ends and leaves about 30 feet between the Long Center and the start of our building. So there is vehicular access, 12-foot clearance, which is the standard clearance that's required for fire trucks and semis. But then the last 30 feet, which has dumpsters for the Long Center and some adjacent buildings, would all be completely open, and there'd be full access. And then the drive lane here, we're getting into the weeds a little bit, but there is a very wide turnaround area that was left open for, trucks and vans to be able to get in and make the turn to the Long Center. So yes, they would still have full access.
Thanks, Barry.
Kevin, as you know, the city of Lafayette owns the Long Center building. And so we're comfortable, and we've been working with them on this to make sure there's appropriate access and that we can get in what we need for the various shows. So they've been good to talk to the whole time, and we're comfortable with where we're getting to make sure we have that access.
Thanks, Mayor. That's awesome. Thank you.
Barry, this is Glenn Vick. I have a question regarding the fiber cement panels. Do you know approximately what percentage of the facade is covered in the fiber cement panels?
Total on the building or per face? Because as you can see on this elevation, there is, 10% of the north elevation is fiber cement. And obviously that goes up significantly on the other elevations.
I guess most specifically the Main Street side, that elevation or view.
Andrew, do you feel Andrew Cullison with KJG is also on the call?
Yeah, 15% is probably a good guess. We've got the gray paneling you can see on the north elevation. That's kind of the most. And then the top, like fiber cement paneling, the white parts are more meant to mimic wood, like you would see on typical cornice work.
I would like to say we did receive some comments to reduce that amount, but we did add masonry in some of the areas that were originally shown as fiber cement. We did increase the brick amount.
Hey, Glenn, this is Sean. I requested at the COA committee that they add more brick to the Main Street facade, and it looks like they did.
Okay. I assume it's why it's not all brick on the Main Street facing?
We did that to intentionally try to reduce the feel of the height of the building. This is a very standard kind of a base, middle, and top design. So by switching to fiber cement, we feel it actually brings the scale of the building down a little bit.
How do you think this is going to look in 7,500 years? Well, given the fact that most of the structures on Main Street are of a masonry nature, i.e. brick or limestone.
Fiber cement paneling has a 50-year warranty on it. So it is one of the longer warranties from non-masonry products. But with good maintenance and a repaint, it should hold up. It obviously, that's 50 years, so it'll need some touch up in 50 years. But brick, needs tuck pointing and maintenance as well. It doesn't last forever if it's left alone.
Okay, and one final follow-up. Was it mostly a cost consideration, or to not have it all brick on the Main Street side?
No, I think the intent was to break up the height of the building by giving the 5th floor a material change. I think the significant factor on that one was aesthetics.
And you can accomplish that with the different color of brick? I'm sorry, I'll repeat. You could not have accomplished that with a different color of brick?
It could be accomplished. It would be a different look, though, because of the panel lines and the trim and cornice work that we were provided. Obviously couldn't do that with masonry.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other commission members?
Sean Lutz here. I don't have any particular issue with the height because the facade is broken up, and there are changes compared to how it looked when it was first brought to the Certificate of Appropriateness Committee. I think, and another change that was stated earlier was the change from the kind of the silver aluminum on the storefronts to the darker tone. And Barry, correct me if I'm wrong, there won't be any silver aluminum on the Main Street facade at this point.
That's correct. Both the aluminum storefront and the upper windows would all be black.
Okay.
So I'm taking this interject real quickly, just because if you've all seen me typing, I'm texting Julie again. She's been watching on YouTube. She was having trouble connecting in. I'm trying to get her to get connected in. So hopefully she'll be joining us, but that's why I'm texting. I'm not like sending notes to people other than Julie.
Thank you. Okay. Are there any other commission members who would like to speak?
I would like to speak. This is Shauna McCauley. Being a lifelong Lafayette resident myself and living in a historical neighborhood, there's little bits of this building that I really appreciate, but I also really appreciate the downtown that we have. And I agree with Glenn Vic, with it bringing a brick historical downtown. I would love to see more of that as our facades. The darker one in the middle, I really like because I think that really fits our downtown. The fiberboard, I think we can really maybe replace that with brick and make it more historically appropriate. I just feel like as our downtown, our Main Street is important to feel like a historic district. And having the brick, to me, would be more historically accurate than the fiberboard.
Shauna, are you talking about the Main Street elevation or all elevations?
Well, I'm talking about what's not necessarily the brick facades, the fiberboard all the way to the right next to Kathy's Candies. I think, to me personally, I think a brick would look better there. Some of the fiberboard up at the top to look different. I think more brick would be better and historically accurate than some of the fiberboard, and I personally would like to see that a little bit more.
If I may, I would like to clarify that this is a limestone
That's
paneling.
all limestone.
Okay.
The black and white drawings detail out that section is limestone veneer, which is, there are two buildings just catty corner down the street that utilize the same limestone. But that is the main area that's limestone.
Yeah. I just feel like brick is a little bit more appropriate for a building facade than all the limestone that we have. I think it really doesn't fit the area of the time that we're trying to achieve.
Well, I will agree with you, Sean, that I would like to see some more brick on that as well.
Can you guys clarify that? Why do you think the limestone doesn't fit with when we have buildings throughout downtown that have limestone on them? And what's the courthouse made out of? I mean,
Correct. I mean, the courthouse is all limestone, but to me, I feel like it's not architecturally different than just a flat slab. I mean, those buildings that you're showing me have some details to them, and I just feel like what I'm looking at right now with, you know, I like the detail of the different facades that we're trying to get to, but also I think the modern materials don't necessarily fit the appropriate look that I think. I just feel like that's a material that you could build a hospital out of. I mean, not to be offensive, but I think our downtown Main Street needs a little bit more of an architectural difference than some of the details that I'm seeing. Not all. I appreciate a lot of what's being done here, but I think that, in my opinion, some of it could be done a little bit differently to look more age appropriate.
I'll add, if you don't mind here, some of the direction that was given along the way, you know, and that Kurt pointed out too, was that area there where the entrance is for the residents and things, that was being recessed to not be as conspicuous onto the Main Street side and such, and give more prominence to the rest of the building. And also the fiber cement as well too, so to kind of, if you will, kind of fade out a little bit, so that it kind of lessens the height and the massing. So that would have to do with a lot of it. Didn't want to draw those kind of colors with the limestone and the fiber cement. Makes it so there's not as much of your eye is drawn to that, where it's more drawn to, as Shauna pointed out, you know, the brick areas, which are more in keeping with the other buildings and the typical styles that are in the downtown. So part of that was, you know, direction that they've been given over the past several weeks.
And maybe we did try to bite off more than we could chew. We tried to be, this is a very eclectic block of Main Street. There are so many design types. Obviously, we didn't want to match the Frontier building, but you can see if you look, you know, up and down Main Street, different colors, different materials. It's a very difficult, if this was a block that had a more homogeneous style, I think it would have been much easier, but there are very many height changes. I mean, just right next to our building, some unique shapes, structures, and materials. You can see here limestone, glazed brick, stucco. It's a very eclectic block for sure.
Barry, and it should be said that just around the corner, you used to have the old YMCA and the Columbia Flats, which were about 5 stories each.
And I don't, honestly, I am all for the growth of downtown. I love downtown. I live downtown. I'm here all the time. But I think what our community wants, and as a person of our community, that we really walk down our downtown, and sometimes you don't know what year the building was built. You know, there are new buildings that are downtown that you can't tell that was built in the 90s. there are architectural details that make it stand out like it was old, and it's not. So I think as a community, I think that's what we want to see is those details, you know, I mean, something that stands out a little different. Yes, it's built now, but you can add some old details to make it look like it's old. I mean, this looks like a new building, most of it to me. Like I said, the darker brick in the middle, that looks like an old building to me next to the right side of it. And I think as a community, I think we want to see infill that looks like our old, and we can't tell the difference. But that's just my personal opinion, and I'm speaking for myself.
Hey, Kurt or Dan, maybe one of you could talk about the National Trust or the standards, I think even with the Secretary of Interior, that don't want the new buildings to mimic the old ones. You're not supposed to make them look like they were built back in the 1800s. Is that correct?
Yes, they're to be distinguishably different in that you can tell, but there's the scaling, massing, and materials are supposed to be similar. And Sean, I guess I've asked the same questions, and I don't know that we're at that level of detail, but if this is a flush limestone block wall like you'd see in some modern downtown, but if there's bevels where the blocks come together, you know, how it's jointed, how it's detailed can break up that mass or make it look like a big stucco wall. So I've been asking for those details too, and so some of those we need to verify some of those details or encourage them to break up the detail, because the other limestone buildings and things that are downtown, whether it's the courthouse or whatever, you can see the individual stones. It's not just a big limestone mass, and they're, you know, the stones or the panels aren't real large. So we don't want real large panels. More individual stones or some detail that kind of breaks that up would be preferred.
And I agree with Dan there. I think that limestone portion can be designed to fit in. I think, Shauna, that it's that fiber cement board up on the 5th story that may be bothering you, because it was discussed quite a bit, and if that can indeed be changed over or less of the fiber cement, at least on the north elevation, I think that would get a lot closer to fitting your visions there.
And meeting the recommendations.
It's Amy. If I'm correct, am I right that there is a change of color across the fiber cement at the top, and that presumably that was a change made as a result of the COA discussion?
It was not specifically discussed, but the 3 colors chosen for the fiber cement were done to mimic the 3 main colors of limestone. You can get a white, a buff, and a gray. So those were why those 3 colors were chosen.
If I could ask, of the other rendering, if you could scroll to B. On the portion of the building closest to the Frontier building, the gray material that separates the floors, that also is the fiber cement board right down to between the 2nd and 3rd floor?
This gray here?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So that's the only place on the facade of Main Street where it's not at the rooftop. I guess there's probably a couple places.
It is in between the different architectural styles. Yes.
Okay.
So it's located in 3 locations.
Okay.
Yes, 3 locations.
Anybody else from the commission have any other discussions or questions?
Well, I'm thinking what you were just talking about there, John, probably could easily be changed to a gray brick. I don't mind the color one bit. I think it does do good with differentiating the different facade designs, but I think that could easily be changed to a brick.
I would agree. The color does set apart the different materials that it surrounds nicely. So I do like that. Barry, could you talk about any possibility of at least the three bottom bands, not at the parapet, maybe being a similar color, but instead be the brick veneer?
I haven't discussed that with my client, but it can happen architecturally.
That may be quite helpful, I think, in kind of satisfying some of the things I've been hearing. I think it probably would look pretty good, so I think it would be a good idea to maybe see if that's something you guys can make work.
This is Andy Gutwein. Personally, I like the little variation in the look of it, so it breaks up the different buildings. I think that not only the color but the texture of the material there is beneficial to visually break the buildings apart. If making it gray brick instead of gray panel material is what's necessary, then so be it. I guess it's just really it's a little confusing, I guess, to me that some of the different comments that we get back, that they don't always seem consistent, but and I don't really know how to answer some of the questions that are coming up tonight. I don't really know how this is supposed to work. So if that's what's needed, then so be it. I don't know that I'm convinced it's the best thing to do, but that's all.
Some of the other commission members like to speak to that. Does that seem to be something that is favored by anybody?
Hi, this is Sean again. Andy, I really appreciate the time you're taking with this design to make sure it's done right. I think, for those three lower panels, making them a gray brick would be great.
Yes, and I agree. As I said, I agree with Sean. I think that would still maintain the design elements you're looking for here, blend it in more with the downtown brick buildings.
This is Glenn. I would concur with Sean and Kurt. Overall, I have problems with the design. I think it looks good. I don't should try and mimic what's 100-year-old buildings in downtown. So I don't have problems with height. My question is the brick veneer paneling and what's it going to 50, 75, 100 years. That's my writing concern. So if consideration could be given to substituting or reducing that percentage and replacing it with brick veneer, I think it would be a better looking, longer lasting project. And Andy, I want to just call out and say, this is a hell of an investment and be commended for that. I think it's going to inject a lot of vibrancy and energy into Main Street and that 600 block that sorely needs.
If I could bring a few other things up that have nothing to do with building material. Just a quick question. I think I know the answer to this one. We obviously have a very nice sidewalk and streetscape along this portion of Main Street. The way this building relates to that, are there any changes at all contemplated, or is it just going to blend seamlessly?
Yeah,
any outdoor seating, things like that, I guess is kind of what it,
not
getting out fenced off areas. Is that not part of?
No, we would put the streetscape back.
And the other question
position was.
Okay, all right, so no changes.
Well, John, there's
the other question I had.
Currently a drive, a driveway into the parking lot, in and out. We're not planning to keep that. So we'll put it back the way the rest of the streetscape is, but we'll take out the driveway.
Very good.
I would like
the
also
other-
like to add, we really don't like trees in front of the entryways to the businesses. If they could be adjusted once you know exactly where the entrances are.
Wouldn't that be something though that the city would do?
Yes, if that'll keep things moving, we'll be happy to adjust the location of the trees if that's something the commission is interested in.
Very good. The other question I wanted to ask, I didn't see anything about this, but as far as lighting, what type of lighting is going to be installed to help celebrate this building? We've got a huge opportunity here. I assume that we'll have some exterior lighting in places.
That has not been discussed as of yet, but we assume there will be lighting along the street to make sure that that block is adequately lit. Andy, did you have any visions of any additional architectural lighting that would not
I
be
mean, I agree with John that it is a great opportunity, a great chance. I think that to the extent we could get some lighting on there that would highlight the building without disturbing, being obnoxious to disturb anybody in the area, including the residents and the neighbors. I think that'd be great, but you're correct, Barry. We just haven't given consideration to that at this point.
Okay, and I think that's just fine. We can certainly move forward with that being handled at a different time. So I just wanted to clarify. All right. Is there anything else from any of the other commission members? Okay, not having heard anything, I think this might be the opportunity where we open it up for public comment. John?
Sure. So we did receive several emails from folks, as you may recall, that based on Governor Holcomb's requirements for how public meetings should be held during the COVID-19 crisis, this format is acceptable as long as we do roll call votes and as long as we give the public an opportunity to respond in advance of the meeting, which they did. They could respond until 6 o'clock this evening, and no one responded after that anyway that I saw. And I will tell you that typically the only time that there is an opportunity for folks to be able to participate on the public side is if there is a public hearing. And this is not a public hearing. This is a standard Historic Preservation Commission meeting. So we do meet the governor's requirements for a public meeting, just to clarify. So I received probably 10 or 12 comments, and I'll put each of them into the record. So please bear with me, and we will make them a part of the record as well. So this is from Jan Applegate, who says, I understand. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
I understand the desire to improve a lot and raise tax revenue. However, if you increase the use of the Lafayette Theater, where will visitors park? Parking mentioned for the property improvement be for the public and enough to replace the parking at 631 Main Street. When I go to the Long Center or the Brew Pub, I park in that lot. It's exciting to have more going on downtown, but we need parking that is safe and close. And just to clarify again, like I said, I think at the beginning, that is unfortunately out of the purview of the Historic Preservation Commission. This is not a parking discussion. So I don't think the commission can really address that issue. And it's a privately owned lot. The city has no control over that. Okay, the second one comes from Charlie James. He says, good morning, and he lives at 800 Hitt Street. Good morning. I was recently downtown on the south side of Main Street. Looking out from that vantage point, I could see how inviting areas are right in front of the Lafayette Brewing Company. As I look at the depiction of the proposed development, I don't see anything that creates the kind of welcoming that I have been appreciating in the downtown area. It has a lot to do with how little offset from Main Street is proposed for the development. Also, public gathering places are absent from the proposed drawing. The aesthetics are limited when the drawing is limited to trees, trash depositories, and flower pots. Downtown deserves more. Have the developers considered creating balconies where tenants, owners could lounge and take in more of what the downtown has to give? While I'm sure there would be additional cost to this, I wonder if the increased property values could make this a viable choice for Main Street units. I would appreciate it if the Lafayette Historic Preservation Commission would take my comments into consideration as you decide on the direction and this and future projects may make in our community. And again, typically balconies were not something that were standard or typical in a downtown area, and the streetscape, in an urban downtown streetscape, I think according to the Historic Preservation Commission ordinance, the building should be in line with the adjacent buildings, which brings it to the back of the sidewalk.
Right.
The next one is from J.P. Schaefer, and he says, Dennis, I am president of the North Perrin Neighborhood Association. Our members are CC'd. I send this email to express my personal opinions and objection to the proposed development at 631 Main Street, at least with respect to the Main Street facade. Though we have not met as a neighborhood association to discuss this matter, I am confident that many of my neighbors would agree with me on the opinions expressed herein. For starters, our community made a big mistake when we approved the mark. It stands in stark contrast to the historically beautiful buildings on Main Street, especially the Big Four Depot. The mark could not be more incongruous with its surroundings. It does nothing to improve the charm of downtown Lafayette. Yet we approved the development because it brought foot traffic downtown, increased the tax base, promoted economic development, etc. We cannot continue to sacrifice the charm and beauty of Main Street for the sake of economic development. The photos of the proposed development appearing in the JC Online article depict a truly ugly facade facing Main Street. It does not appear that the designers made any effort to harmonize the facade with the surrounding buildings. I'm afraid that we are, sorry, I lost my place. I'm afraid that we are about to once again approve an ugly building merely based on economic development considerations. But there's good news. We can have it both ways. It's been done before and recently. Attached are photos of 844 Main Street, which was built, I believe, within the last 10 to 15 years. The developers incorporated traditional architectural elements, limestone lintels, decorative corbels, etc., and the building truly fits in with its neighbors and adds to the warm beauty and charm of Main Street. Cannot something similar be done here? My requests: 1, postpone this meeting until members of the public can appear and voice their opinions live. This is just too important and too large of a development to force through quickly and not allow people to provide live feedback. A YouTube feed plus emailed comments is just not the same as a public meeting. We're going to be stuck with our decision for decades to come. It needs to be the right one. Deny the plan. 2, deny the plan until such time as the developers submit a Main Street facade that fits with its surroundings. Notice that I am not objecting to the size, the height, the appearance of the other 3 sides, etc. In fact, I'm excited about the development as a whole. I merely request that the Main Street side be improved. Please forward this please forward this email and attachments to the members of the commission. I did not see their emails posted on the city website. And then he posted a picture, which is 844 Main Street. You probably all, I think, recognize it. It's just one building west of 9th Street. You can see 9th Street off to the right, or at least my right. Okay. Number 3, actually, we received comments from several of the North Perrin neighborhood group, and they all concurred. One was from Ken McCammon. Please also pass my agreement with JP on this matter to the commission. Norman Curry, I also concur that this project needs to complement the beauty of our historic downtown. It was accomplished at 844 Main. Norm Curry, 655 Perrin. John Strong says, Dennis, I agree with JP in this matter. While I'm excited about the project as a whole, I would like to see the Main Street facade fit with the style, beauty, and charm of other beautiful downtown buildings. John Strong. Linda Schaefer, we also would like to put on the list those who are in favor of preserving the historic beauty of our town. We agree with all the points in John Paul's letter. Linda and Edward Schaefer, 635 at Perrin Avenue. We also received an email from Ivy Meyer from St. Mary's Historic Neighborhood Association. She says, to Dennis Carson and the other commissioners, I am the president of the St. Mary's Historic Neighborhood. I'm writing to convey my disappointment in the appearance of the proposed building at 631 Main Street. A development project in that area is wonderful in theory, but it is in the heart of downtown, and the design of the building seems to entirely ignore the surrounding architecture. The building would sure stick out like a sore thumb in downtown. The downtown area is charming because of its historic buildings with architectural details and facades that attract people to live, play, and work in the area. I do realize the Frontier building beside it is also a modern monstrosity. I hope that the facade of this building can be reworked to fit nicely with other downtown buildings and be an asset to Lafayette instead of a sad chapter of modernization. Okay. We received an email or a letter from Tommy Kleckner, who is the the director of the Western Regional Office of Indiana Landmarks. He says, regarding 631 Main Street Apartments, COA, Dear Commission members, I submit this letter as comment on the COA for the proposed 631 Main Street Apartments development, and I respectfully request it be read into the record of your meeting this evening. The continued interest in downtown infill development is encouraging, particularly when the proposed infill will address long-standing gaps within historic corridors such as Main Street. Establishing a precedent of high quality, sympathetic, but distinct infill design becomes even more important to ensure these new additions enhance the existing historic fabric of downtown Lafayette and, hopefully, become future landmarks in their own right. To that goal, Indiana Landmarks has several concerns. They wish the proposed design, which I am addressing by category. They are as follows. First is scale and proportion. The appropriateness of 5 stories within the Upper Main Street Historic District, where the tallest structures are 4 stories, is certainly questionable. Pushing the 5th floor back from the street is one option for reducing the massive appearance of the building, though I realize this may impact the proposed overall configuration of the structure. Another option would be to reduce the height of the exaggerated parapets while also increasing the size and dimensional interest of the cornices. Even at a reduced height, the upper facade/parapet area should still provide sufficient screening of rooftop condenser units. The current proportions of the wall surface above the 5th floor fenestration to the top of the parapets is visually awkward. Reducing the height of the parapet and improving the scale of the cornices will create a more appropriate balance to both the upper facade and overall structure. Materials. I encourage the Historic Preservation Commission to work with the applicant and developer to simplify the number of colors and variations in use of cladding materials proposed for the structure. This is particularly important for the front Main Street facade. 5 proposed colors of brick and 6 of fiber cement panels along with limestone panels and cast stone accents currently contributes to what may best be described as visual clutter. Of the proposed brick and fiber cement panel colors, gray is the least compatible and least successful with the red brick and stone color tones. The Juliet balcony railing. Rather than the proposed railing design of full height vertical metal infills, I suggest a railing design that features a mid-rail. This would help break up the verticality and reduce the perceived height of the railing. I'm attaching an image of an example of such a railing design. The actual product used would certainly need to meet code requirements for the proposed development. Thank you for your time and consideration of these comments. I hope the Historic Preservation Commission will work with the applicant and developer to address these concerns and any others identified by the COA Committee for the Public. Sincerely, Tommy Kleckner, Director, Western Regional Office. He also attached an image of a Juliet balcony with a horizontal component that you can see at the top of the rail. As an example, not necessarily suggesting that should be it. I received an email from Andrew DeSutter. He says, hi, I read the JNC article that this new development will have 3 retail commercial spaces on the street level. Who determines what businesses will go in there? Will there be any kind of selection process, or is it merely first come, first serve? Again, this is completely out of the purview of the Historic Preservation Commission, and it's totally up to the developers to work with that. Finally, we received an email from Quentin Robinson. He's a Tippecanoe County historian. He says, greetings, friends. As the Tippecanoe County historian, I would like to present some views concerning the proposed development in the 600 block of Main Street for your consideration. First, let me be clear. I'm excited and encouraged to know that someone wants to develop that surface parking lot into something more useful. That being said, my first impression of the project was not a positive one. That opinion was based only on the 2 renderings that I saw. Later, I read the entire packet of information and I realized some of my initial thoughts were unfounded. I am happy that there will there was an attempt to present the building as 4 different buildings. I was happy to see that illusion was increased by the use of different brick colors and patterns. That said, I don't believe the present renderings achieve the goal expressed in the project description. To emulate 4 separate facades, to give the building more appropriate scale and sense of vertical orientation rather than one long building. Current rendering looks just like the half dozen or so other new and recent developments we see around downtown and across the river in West Lafayette. I'm thinking of the Mark and the other one at 215 North 2nd, building where the Red 7 is, the 400 block of Columbia, and behind City Hall at 5th and South. On the other side of the Wabash, take a look at the developments along State Street or on Northwestern Avenue at Evergreen Street. While none of these projects are twins, they're all clearly siblings. They are all the same flavor and texture, and it is a flavor that doesn't match the rest of what Main Street is. Our Main Street development developed into what it is over a period of years and through the different areas of popular building styles. Generally speaking, what we have today was laid down between about 1850 and 1925. Again, I want to say that it's good to see investment and a desire to add to and improve Main Street, and this project could work with what seems like some rather minor exterior adjustments. If the desire was to make this look like several buildings, then it is not yet there. Maybe a little Italianate flavor on parts, some Second Empire flavor with the top floor of one having the appearance of a mansard roof. Maybe 2 things that would be the easiest to change but would have the biggest impact is making the row look less like one building would be to change the window shapes on part of the structure and changing the cornices along the top to be more different and to match any change in window style. Changing just one section to arched windows and adding a bit of Italianate trim on the cornice of that section would break up the facade, I believe. See attached photos to get an idea of what I'm thinking about. I'm not suggesting that the elements illustrated with the attached photos should be exactly duplicated, but I would hope that something similar could be designed for a portion of this project. It appears the style elements that have been used were all taken from 20th century examples. Main Street from 2nd to 11th represents a much wider variety of styles than I see in this building, and worse yet, it fights with and smothers the smaller buildings on the other side of the street. Is Lafayette going to actually embrace our architectural heritage, or are we just going to pretend to do that? Thank you for taking the time to hear these suggestions, and thank you for me serving with this group. Respectfully, Quentin Roth. He sent a whole bunch of photographs, which I was not able to print, but here's just one, which is an architectural detail of a window with an arched window. I'll try to include as many of the photos that he attached with our record, but I think our agenda center can only hold so many megabytes, and they were pretty big. So those, I believe, were all the comments that we received. And with that, I will turn it back over to John.
Okay, thank you very much for your comments, John. Well, at this point, it sounds like we may be at a point where we might be ready to make a motion with an amendment based on the last discussion we had with Barry about and Andy replacing the fiber cement with the brick veneer between the 2nd, 3rd, 4th floors. Anybody like to make a motion?
John, if I can also add a couple other things.
Yes.
To have the applicant report back to us as soon as they know the results of their state variance hearing, and to give Dan more time to look at the details if he so desires.
Very good. Barry, you'll be sure to keep us in the loop.
Yes, would that be via email or at just technically what process you want me to use to report back?
Kurt, John, up to you.
Typically, I mean, I'm sorry, John, were you going to say something?
Up to you, John.
I was just going to say, you can approve it with conditions and give the historic preservation officer the option to review without having to bring it back to the full commission. That's typically what we've done with other projects like this.
Okay, so with regard to the state variance for the window openings, we will handle it that way. Perfect.
Yes, we can report back.
Yeah, Barry, I would just clarify that all comments should go to John Collier, and he can then relay those to Dan. and others that are appropriate. But John Collier should be the single point of contact.
Yes, thank you, Dennis. All right, commissioners, anybody like to make a motion? Well, I suppose I can make a motion, can I?
Yeah. Well, I would appreciate if somebody would. I mean, I think the every effort, and at some point, you have to be a billionaire, and no bank is going to loan enough money. Some economic factor that we have to be realistic. There is some economic piece of this at some point. Nobody is going to be able to afford to do it, and no bank is going to loan the money to anybody. There is a piece of that where it becomes unfeasible. You just can't. You're not rich enough. You don't have enough money to do it. The banks are not going to loan only a certain amount of money. I mean, we cannot just, you're probably getting irritated with it. You just can't wipe that off the table that somehow there is a pot of money that is unlimited and that people are just going to flock here or banks are going to loan it. That's unrealistic. That's unrealistic. They've tried very, very hard to do the best they can and still keep it within. It can make it and it can support itself. You can't go bankrupt doing it. And I love our architecture too, but there's been great architecture. And until we started building some of these new buildings, downtown was dead. There was nobody downtown.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve the project as submitted
With the amendments?
with the amendments.
And this is Kurt Wall. I will second.
Oh, okay.
Very good. Okay. And again, I'll do a roll call and I'll say your name and you can say yes or no. Make it easier. Sean?
Aye.
Glenn? Glenn? Can you hear me, Glenn?
Glenn, do you have it on mute?
I saw him go in and out a little bit earlier. It said joined or unjoined, so I don't know if he's having some
I'm sorry, I'm
trouble.
only getting every word. I think I'm having problems. I said I approve with the conditions.
So that was a yes, Glenn, with conditions, with commitment, or with the amendments, correct?
No, it's
Are we just voting on the amendment now?
No, we're voting on what's proposed with the changes that we talked about.
I'm having difficulty with my consumption.
So Glenn, can you like give a thumbs up or a thumbs down and we can say like with conditions, if we're having trouble with your mic?
Glenn's guy's thumb up.
Okay, and with conditions, thumb up again.
Thumbs up again.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, with conditions. I approve.
Thank you, Glenn. Kevin?
Aye.
Shauna?
I approve with the conditions.
Patty?
I approve with the conditions, John.
Amy?
I approve.
Great. And Kurt?
I approve with the conditions.
And I myself also approve with conditions. Very good. It's unanimous.
Thank you all. I appreciate that.
Thank you, everybody.
I will document the conditions. If you have any communication or comments specific to what we already talked about, you can't really add anything new at this point. Please send those to me if you like.
Very good. And I want to thank Andy and Doug and KJG, Barry and his team very much for the work they've done so far. Very much appreciated. And thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you all for your time and input through the process.
Okay, moving on.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thanks. Next under the agenda, under other business, we have staff report. John, do you have anything?
I will spare you all any more time and say I have no report tonight. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I think that takes us to the end of our agenda. Would someone like to make a motion for adjournment?
I'll make a motion.
Yeah, there you are now. Well,
Julie, will you?
Julie, Julie, you can make the motion. Would someone like to second Julie's motion?
Before we conclude that, Julie, will you just please confirm for everyone that you were watching the YouTube all the way up until you were able to connect in?
Yes, I was watching the YouTube until I could connect. Julie again.
Thanks. Okay, so having a second, all those in favor of adjourning? Sean?
Aye.
Glenn?
Glenn?
He's gone.
Maybe we can come back to Glenn at the end. Julie?
Yes, in favor of adjournment.
Kevin?
Aye.
Shauna?
I saw Glenn give a thumbs up.
Patty?
Yes, aye.
Amy?
Yes.
Kurt?
Aye.
And Glenn did verify, is that right, Michelle? Yes?
Yes.
Yes, he's doing a thumbs up right now.
Very good. All right, thank you everyone very much.
This conference is no longer being recorded.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
It'll turn out good.
Thank you.
We look forward to seeing it.
Dear Lord.